Good evening, all. I recognize that it is 5:59, and we will begin at the stroke of 6 to allow others who may be joining us an opportunity to come in and benefit from all that will be provided. It is now 6 p.m. It is the pleasure of the International Health Commission to present this Home for the Holidays in a Time of COVID and Flu webinar. We are thankful for your attendance. We found it an urgent need as the numbers are continuing to rise and the holidays are upon us. We are grateful for the participation of these very excellent presenters this evening. We have with us Reverend Dr. Oveta Fuller, PhD. She is a microbiologist and immunologist and an itinerant elder in the AMEC Church. Dr. Ouida Collins, who is on faculty at one of the medical schools in Houston, as well as a hospitalist. Reverend Dr. Lisa Williamson, pastor of Calvary Fellowship in New York, and pediatrician and contact tracing specialist. And Reverend Natalie Mitchem, soon to be doctor, who is our registered dietitian and pastor of, oh Lord, she'll tell you when she comes on, in New Jersey. We are grateful to have with us the chairman of the International Health Commission, Bishop Harry Seawright, who was an excellent support, and he will now open us up with a word of prayer. Bishop, we are in your hands.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Burnett. To all the persons gathered together, let us now pray. Dear God, in your name, we come to acknowledge you and give thanks unto you for your many blessings. We come this day because we are in need of a blessing. You've already blessed us in many ways, but we come, God, needing healing in our land. And God, we believe strongly that when we call on you, that you will provide. You will open doors. You are the healer. You are the giver. You use so many people in so many different professions, so many different ways to bring about healings and solutions, medications, staffing, all of the many multitude of ways that you use to heal people. God, thank you for research. Thank you for these persons who are on the front line every day working to make a difference. We thank you for this health commission, for Dr. Burnett and soon to be Dr. Natalie. Thank you for their work and all the team and committed chairpersons that work with them. God, we just ask that you please bring about that solution, bring about that vaccine, bring about the miracle healing that only you can bring. We thank you for this webinar, seminar, whatever we're doing today. We ask you to bless it with your power and with your love. Please, God, let it reach where it needs to be reached. And we ask that you continue to bless the African Methodist Episcopal Church, but not just our church, but all churches, all people all over the world. Let this commission continue to be a channel that is now opening doors and giving advice to the world. Thank you for all you do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We have a lot to cover, and so we shall not tarry. Reverend Dr. Oveta Fuller, will you please take us into the overview and the college students returning home?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Burnett and Bishop Seawright and Reverend Natalie Mitchem for hosting this event. It is indeed important and critical to our our very life that we understand. Honestly, I wish I had better news. However, I'm here to tell you, and I think we all are here to say tonight, that we are headed into a season that will require every effort to navigate for wellness for each of us. So I want to set the stage for what's going to happen tonight. The take-home message is do not panic, but pray, plan, and then pray again to implement what was planned. Yes, this is serious. The now renowned Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, has said, we are entering a dark winter in the USA. I say it is darkest just before dawn, but we have to get through the dark in order to get to the light at the end of the tunnel. You've probably heard of the potential vaccines that are out there, and there was some good news last week, and that is good news, but nothing has yet come to the FDA for approval. We are not yet there. Even if something were approved tomorrow or today, it would take at least 2 to 3 months before we would ever see that in the community, and probably up to 6 to 8 months before it became something that could really make a difference. So then how do we get through this winter 2020? It requires that every person, every authority, and every family engage to make a plan and then rigorously implement that plan over the course of the next 3 to 4 months. Why do I say this? I say this because we are in a perfect storm for an airborne or respiratory infectious disease. And let me lay out the components that make up that perfect storm. Again, I don't want to panic you, I don't want to frighten you, but I do want you to go into preparation mode. In other words, a stitch in time saves 9, right? You understand what I'm saying? If we act now, we can prevent a lot of disaster and a lot of death and a lot of loss that is likely to happen if we do not act, or if we act half-heartedly, or if we act some of the time. So yes, we are in a state of critical preparation. We want to avoid crisis and we want to avoid panic. We want to respond at a time when we have cool heads and healthy bodies, so that we won't be reacting at a time when people are sick or sicker. So let me tell you about the perfect storm. First of all, we have high cases in a surge from events that have happened before. We just came out from opening of colleges and return of students to the campus, to new neighborhoods. We just came through the Halloween holiday, Veterans Day. We're dealing with COVID weariness. People are tired of doing this. But when we are weary, it's when we most need to adhere to what we need to do. So 1 is we're in a high surge. 2, we're going into or in a season of indoor, more cold weather, more closely gathered together because it's cold outside, at least in Michigan, and I'm sure for much of the country. COVID is an airborne virus, as I'll show you, and thus it spreads in close quarters. We're headed into a season where by necessity, we're going to be in close quarters. It's the time when influenza and colds and other bronchitis viruses and bacteria spread. All of these damage the respiratory tract, which is also where COVID dwells. So we're going into a season of indoor activity because of the weather, where respiratory pathogens are most prevalent circulating. So that's reason 2 in this perfect storm. Third reason is simply social behaviors. We are social beings. God created us that way. We like to get together. We like to hug. We like to greet. We like to laugh, and we like to comfort each other in times of distress. We are a social creation, creation. I think that's the word I want. So we're going into a holiday season. It's darker outside sooner. We want to be with families and friends. We have Thanksgiving, Christmas, for some Hanukkah, New Year's, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Valentine's Day, spring break. We're into a season where we typically gather together a lot as humans. So I'm here, and all of us are here tonight to say 2020 must be different. If we do it differently, rigorously, diligently in 2020, then maybe we won't have to be doing this in 2021 or 2022. If we don't do it now, we will be doing it in 2021. We must resist the urge to gather. maybe make a bubble with one other family that you know is isolating, but don't plan together with the grandkids and the sons and the neighbors and the aunties and the uncles. And I know that's hard because we are a group of people who do that. So we're going to hear this evening about alternatives to what to do for family gatherings, which we normally would get together and enjoy each other's company. My son said, Mom, you should say, pay me now or pay me later. So I'm saying, pay me now or pay me later. What does that mean? We either put in the work now to stay safe so that next year this time, we will be able to enjoy the things that we normally enjoy, or at least in a different normal. And then the fourth thing, so the third thing in this perfect storm is the social behaviors that we do at this holiday season, which you're going to hear about some alternatives. And then the fourth thing, which is my major point, is that college students who have left home and gone to campus, some have returned home earlier, but most of them will be returning home in the next few days. At the University of Michigan, where I am, they will return home next Friday and they won't come back until January 19th, if they come back then. Why do I say that? Because this is a whole almost 2 months that students will be home. When they have been on campus, they have been in some ways mixing different households. We have had outbreaks at Michigan. As a matter of fact, the Washtenaw County Health Department in Michigan shut down campus. In other words, told all students to stay in their dwelling for the 3 weeks between about October 16th and November 3rd because of the high levels of COVID. And they did not want that to spill into the community. So now imagine college campus students returning to their homes with relatives and neighbors, older folks at risk, grandmas, grandpas, aunties, uncles, even younger children. And in America, people, it's not just the older people. Every age gets infected. And even those who don't get very, very sick can carry the virus to somebody else. So we must make a plan. We must pray and act to best implement what we know works. So I am going to now show you some of the things that, just to remind you of the biology of COVID-19, so we get a good understanding. That's going to be followed by what happens when you travel. That's going to be followed by alternatives to family gatherings and celebrations that we normally do with our church congregations. And then someone's going to talk about the stress and feelings of isolation. And lastly, what we can do to boost our immune system. So if I can share my screen, which I believe I can do myself. I hope you can see my screen. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. All right. So this is home for the holidays in a time of COVID and flu. Remember, one of the pieces of the perfect storm is that we have all of these things circulating at once. And so, again, we want to thank the Commission for being proactive to do this now so that we can be diligent and informed. Don't panic, but be informed, stay diligent and proactive rather than reactive. Remember, my people perish for lack of knowledge. This is the knowledge that we need tonight. And God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind, and we must use that sound mind. Just a brief review, the terms COVID-19 refers to the disease. The term SARS coronavirus 2 is the virus that was once called novel coronavirus, which is now SARS coronavirus 2. It started in animals. There are hundreds of coronaviruses we're finding in many different species. They move into humans often. This coronavirus 2 is now the 7th coronavirus that has appeared in humans. There were 2 SARS and MERS, which circulated and caused limited epidemics. And there are 4 human respiratory coronaviruses that were circulating earlier that cause common colds and bronchitis. So sometimes when you get a cold and you can't get over it or seems to last a long time, it may be one of the 4 previous known human coronaviruses. What has happened with SARS-2 is that the virus evolved out of animals into humans to not only cause upper respiratory transmission, but to transmit very easily. And thus it is transmitted throughout the world to what is now called a pandemic. And the World Health Organization declared a pandemic on March 11th, 2020 with just 118,000 cases worldwide. All right, so I'm going to show you where we are. Now we have spread in the community to all continents such that we're in a worldwide pandemic. This is an artist diagram of the large spikes on coronavirus. This is actual pictures from a very large, very blown up electron micrographs of coronavirus replicating in human cells or reproducing itself. And so you see one infected cell produces lots and lots and lots of virus. This is why people get so sick and why people can easily transmit this virus through aerosols, through the air passages. How does it transmit? You've heard this, but I want to be sure you understand it. Virus is made in the cells that line the upper respiratory tract, the nasal passages and the throat. When someone who is not wearing a mask, who is infected, whether they have symptoms or not, coughs, sneezes, talks, sings, yells, they put particles of air and water into the atmosphere that contain virus. Anybody that's close enough will inhale those and it will enter their respiratory tract. The preventions to keep this from happening, to break this here, are social distancing, staying home, avoiding other people or crowds. This is what we must think about when students return home.
Some sweet potato.
Somebody needs to mute, I believe. Thank you. Wear a mask if you're outside the room. So when the students return home, they are going to need to do a 14-day isolation, even to keep their own family safe. And I know this is difficult. Some people may not have a room that they can dedicate to this, but they must wear a mask at the least and try to remain as far away from family members as possible. What I said is this is a time when most students will be preparing for final exams. So it's a good time to hunker down and study. And if you go out of the room, when you do, be sure you're masked up. Be sure you clean common areas, wash hands, avoid touching other people. This is going to be critical when students who have been together coming from a university come back home. At the University of Michigan, every student is required to get tested before they can leave to go home. So this will be very important. And I also suggest that within 4 or 5 days after getting home, that they test to make sure they're not infected. The next 2 slides are simple examples of how easily this virus can be transmitted. This was back in March, where one person who did not know they were infected spent 3 days in a chalet at a ski resort with about 12 other people or 11 other people for 3 days. And that person was secreting virus, person A. It looks like all these people who are in red over the course of the next 3 weeks ended up with COVID-19, tested positive for COVID-19. So one asymptomatic person was responsible for at least 21 people and in different countries moving the virus. This is how it became a pandemic in the first place. This is a highly contagious airborne virus. This is another example. This is a bar in East Lansing, Michigan, which reopened when the state reopened bars. This is a typical gathering. This is an older picture, but it shows you how young people flock to there. And obviously, when you're at a bar, you're going to be talking and drinking and not have a mask on. So this resulted in 120 plus young adults testing positive for COVID-19 shortly after the campuses reopened and the bars reopened. Actually, it was before campus reopened in June of 2020 when the bars and many of the restaurants reopened. This again is how many viruses are coming just from one cell. So the take home here is any gathering of people from different households. It doesn't matter if it's grandma's household and auntie's household. If auntie's husband has been out on the forefront working and he gets exposed and he doesn't know or she doesn't know they are symptomatic, they are producing virus, then when they get together with grandma or with cousins or nieces or whomever, they can transmit the virus, which can ultimately get to grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, whomever they come in contact with. So people from different households should not get together. And I know that's hard. That's counter to everything we want to do during the holidays. And Dr. Burnett's going to talk about some alternatives. All right, so where are we? I told you we're in the middle of a surge. This is what it looked like the last time I did this with the commission back in September 26th. Here's where we were. This is the highest level with about 45,000 cases per day, new cases in the US. This is where we are now. This is the 100,000 cases per day. This is where we are on the 14th, which was yesterday, 159,000 cases in the US, almost 160,000 positive cases in the US. This is not just due to more testing, even though more testing is happening. It is due to more circulating virus. We are in a surge. The virus is moving because we are carrying it. It's not on the way down, it's on the way up. Even as we go into the season of holidays, colder weather, circulating microbes, and returning of students from households. This is a slide that was used with my church, but what I really want to show you here, this is a close-up picture of coronavirus. What I really want to show you is where the US is. So if we look at the countries, the developed countries in terms of their number of COVID deaths per million, here's the United States of America back in September or early October, I believe, October 5th. And then importantly, looking here, when we look at the age breakdown, we know that most of our churches are full of older adults, and that many of our aunts and uncles and grandmoms and moms and dads are older. Look at what happens with COVID. So when we look at the percent of cases, which is in the gold, we see they're spread through all ages from 0 to 19 to over 80, the gold bars. When we look at the percent of deaths, which is the red bar, what do we see? We see that the number of people who die from COVID-19 are those more susceptible people who are in our churches. That's why our churches are closed, thanks to our bishops making wise decisions. So these people don't get more infections, but they are more susceptible to severe COVID. And so we have to protect them. I'm over that group now. I'm in that 65 and older group. You have to protect people like me and my husband. Everybody has to do that. We have to impress upon our young adults that they are a key to keeping everybody safe, even though they want to get together, they want to see their high school friends, they want to socialize. This 2020 year is not the time to do that. This is an early slide that showed you the disproportionate effect of coronavirus on African Americans. These are multiple locations around the country. I'll just use Chicago. 32% of the population early on in May had 67% of the deaths due to coronavirus. Look at DC, 46% of the population are African Americans, 58% of the deaths. Look at Michigan, 14% of the people are African American, 41% of the deaths due to coronavirus were African Americans. We are in the forefront of being affected by this pandemic. We have to stop this. We have to say no more. We're going to shut this virus from our community. So I want you to take a deep breath. I'm going to look at my time. All right. I'm going to show you now what COVID does to the body so you know what you're trying to prevent. All right. So very importantly, the virus is transmitted in the air. And so from the time of an initial exposure, so if you're talking to someone without a mask, if your college student comes home and he or she might have been infected while on campus but doesn't know it, or they may have been infected in travel, and we're going to hear about how to minimize that. From that initial exposure here, it can take up to 3 to 14 days for the symptoms to show up if there are symptoms. However, there's shedding of virus from those respiratory drops from the tissues that are making virus in here, starting at about day 3. So the person doesn't even know they're infected. The symptoms typically don't start till about day 5. So there's a period of time when people are talking and doing what they do, unless they're following the guidelines of wearing a mask and staying isolated, where they can be spreading it to other people. Remember that example where one person spread it to 21 people in less than 3 days in the chalet, the ski resort? So the thing I want you to remember here is that the symptoms can come after the virus shedding. If someone were to get tested, if they tested here, they might be negative. But if they test it around 4 to 7 days, if the virus is there, chances are it will show up, whether they have symptoms or not. So we can see clinical symptoms, which can be recognized, or we can have subclinical asymptomatic infections. Even people who are infected preclinically, pre-symptomatically can infect somebody else. How do we know? How do we deal with the risk? How much virus is encountered? So if I'm around someone for 15 minutes versus around someone for 5 hours, there's a big difference. The status of the person's immune defenses, so older people, 65 and older, have less good defenses, immune defenses, but everybody is affected by this. And then any underlying condition, hypertension, diabetes, COPD, anything that stresses the body's systems can increase the risk of contracting COVID to be more moderate than mild. What do we do about this? Stay home, limit trips, close interactions. And we must consistently do this. We must socially be responsible as good citizens, not only to protect ourselves, but to protect others. And that may mean for some families, setting some plan for your young adult that he or she can have some social outlets on the internet or on the phone, but that mixing with other households has to be limited this 2020 season. What happens when coronavirus gets in the body? The first symptoms, if they're going to be symptoms, dry cough, shortness of breath, fever, headache, muscle pain, tiredness, and uniquely purple toe and fingers and loss of taste and smell. We're realizing that the loss of taste and smell is actually something that's usually quite common with COVID these days. And that's because the virus is reproducing in these tissues along the mouth, the oral cavity, and throat where taste and smell are located. And it travels down these tissues into the lungs, leading ultimately to shortness of breath. And this can happen very, very quickly. The immune system then attacking the virus can cause the moderate to mild to severe symptoms that show up. So we see that the airflow into the lungs, and I think I can actually have this on another slide, yes. So 80% of the people who get infected have no symptoms or mild symptoms or moderate symptoms. They might have a fever, they may have a cough, but 20% of the people, and that number may be changing in the Americas because of the demographics of what we do, will get severe disease. What happens in severe disease? Normally the lungs, which have these bronchioli and alveoli that breathe in air, breathe in oxygen, put out CO2 in a thin membrane, get clogged because of virus reproducing and mucous membrane from the immune system attack. And when they get clogged, the air no longer freely flows. And furthermore, they ultimately fill up with fluid, which is what pneumonia is. So someone with COVID is dealing with the mucus that gathers in these small air sacs, which prevents them from breathing. Someone has compared it to a sponge that is flexible versus a sponge that is dried out and can't move. That's why people cannot breathe. So severe COVID can lead to pneumonia, difficulty breathing, effects on other organs because the oxygen is not getting there, and what we call acute respiratory disease. What am I saying about other organs? We're now finding out that coronavirus can replicate all over the body. It can lead to brain strokes, blood clots, neurological issues, pink eye and nose, loss of smell, blood clotting, GI tract, vomiting and diarrhea. The lungs can get clogged. That's what we first knew. The heart muscle is weakened. Kidneys are damaged. So many people who have severe COVID go on dialysis because their kidneys no longer function. Skin disorders, as I mentioned, the purple toes or purple fingers or the rash that's due to the virus replicating in the blood vessel cells. This virus can replicate in multiple tissues of the body. And then the immune system is affected, not only for that time, but we're finding with many people, there are symptoms over a long course of time. So there's something called the long haulers. And this is when after the initial symptoms go away, and you might even have a negative COVID test, people are saying there are lingering symptoms, fatigue, lack of being able to sleep, vertigo, chest and pain and cough, skin rashes, joint pains, brain fog, shortness of breath. I know this sounds terrible. That's because in severe, even to moderate cases, these things show up. People feel like they have chronic fatigue syndrome. We didn't know this in April or May, but now that enough people have gotten infected, we're seeing these sorts of things. When someone gets severe COVID and has to be hospitalized, the strategy is to put them on a respirator or now turn them so they're facing down so they can breathe better to allow the oxygen in and the CO2 out. And that has helped to reduce the deaths resulting from moderate to severe COVID. All right, so what must we do? And I'm about at the end. This is what we must do. This is what we must do if we are going to navigate this perfect storm without panicking, but be in proactive implement and prevent mode, and harness our desire as human beings to be social, to show our love, to gather together. We can't even gather together to comfort those who are grieving. We can't even visit those people who are in hospitals who are sick if we are in a lockdown, or even if we need to be in a lockdown. Right now, many hospitals are closing their doors to visitors again. So we want to be proactive to reverse this thing as opposed to play into the surge that is currently happening at a time when there's winter season, social gatherings normally, which we must not do this year, and the return of college students to their homes. We must remain proactive to use the prevention strategies. We must make with your family and your extended family a plan. Connect, and you'll hear about what to do, but connect on Zoom or connect some other way. Implement that plan for the next 4 months. Require compliance as you can for your family, for leaders from for others in the community. So pastors and leaders of other organizations, you have a huge role in sharing this information and asking people to comply. Know that it takes a minimum of 10 to 14 days before whether a person is positive or not shows up in their either getting sick or having a positive test. So if I travel today, it may be next weekend or later before I know that I had contracted infection. Everyone, I should underline, everyone can stop infection, and every one infection can lead to at least 5 others getting infected. So we must be diligent and vigilant. The last slide simply show you that the symptoms for cold and flu and coronavirus are very, very similar. I'll just close with a personal story where one of my family members thought that or even I have thought that I had been exposed, and the worry and the stress that it brought until I took my test the 4th day after exposure, and it came back 2 days later negative. I was so relieved. So testing is critical, but testing also can lead to a negative result because it's not at the right time. The vaccine candidates that you've been hearing about, we do not have an approved vaccine. We have lots of candidates that are being looked at in the FDA process, with now about 13, this slide is out of date, that are in these phase 3 trials where there must be at least 30,000 to 60,000 people enrolled before they can get results. The results you saw was for 94 cases of COVID, of which only about 10 showed up in the vaccine group, and most of the non-vaccinated folks were where the other 80 cases showed up. What do? We must wear a mask correctly. So this means if you don't wear a mask, the person is putting these air droplets and aerosols that carry a little bit of virus. A little bit of virus can make a lot of virus and just spreads it in the community. There are 3 kinds of masks. There's the N95 mask, which is worn by health providers, and it is in short supply. It not only stops the aerosol, the large droplets, but also the aerosols, because there's a magnetic component within the matrix. So it stops most of the things that carry the virus. And then there's surgical mask and cloth mask, which stop most of the respiratory droplets. and is more prone to let aerosols in if it's worn incorrectly. How do you wear it correctly? First of all, you have to wear it when you're with people. Second of all, you want to make sure that it's snug such that it fits around the surface of the cheek so that no air can get in here. You want to make sure that it covers the mouth and the nose. How many times have you been in somebody's presence when they have the mask on and then it drops a little bit below the nose and then it just drops below the chin and it's there, but it's not doing anything. You want to make sure there's no valve. You want to be sure you don't touch the front of the mask where the virus accumulates. You want to make sure your hands are clean when you take it off. And you want to be sure that you take the used mask and put it someplace safe. So here's the last slide. What must we do? What's the take home? College students returning to home can bring virus home. You must make a plan and implement strategies to make sure that you are not allowing this to be a factor in a risk for the family. So remain in your immediate home or family unit. When that college student goes home, arrives home, they want to see their friend across town or see aunt whomever or Uncle Kwame or whatever, the answer is they should not do that. Isolate or protect the family by staying home for the first 14 days as possible. Get another COVID test within 4 to 6 days of arriving home to make sure you're negative. And then you can let up a little bit. Always, for everyone, use the 3 C's of WC2 when you're away from home. And if you're at home during that isolation period, you must use them then. What are the 3 W's? Wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance. Stay 6 feet or more from other people. 3 C's, avoid crowds, avoid combined spaces. Yes, my brother's family and my family want to get together. My best friend and I want together, but not this year. Don't do it. Avoid close contact. You want to hug somebody? Do the hug sign from a distance. If you have symptoms or are at risk, get a test, get a test, get a test. Trace contacts. Let somebody know who you've been around if you find out you're positive. Treatment. There is no treatment. Let me repeat. There is no treatment. So all we have is prevention. Consistent action will reduce community level of COVID, and that's what we must do now. The last slide just simply shows you what we must do to manage COVID, influenza, cold viruses. The highest risk is when neither the person who's asymptomatically infected or the uninfected person do not wear masks. We've seen that. We've seen that happen in the White House and people working there. The next highest level of transmission is when the uninfected wears a mask, but the one who's putting out virus does not. Then we have a medium level. The best levels of control, which is what we want to do and insist that people around us do, not out of meanness, but because we love them and we love each other and our families. We want to, the best thing to do is to stay in your own household. This is the gold standard. There's almost no chance of virus transmitting if the people in your household do not have virus. The other piece is to wear a mask, everyone, and stay socially distanced or physically distanced. And then when both people have on a mask, that is a low chance of transmission. But these 3 are what we have to do in order to stop COVID during this perfect storm season. I thank you. I just want to simply say prayerfully, this is what we know. This is what we must do. If we don't do it now, we will be doing it next year this time. And I, for one, would just like to get past this time. We will not have the vaccine for at least 2 to 3 months at the best to our healthcare workers. And then for the general population, it will probably be next summer, I'd say June, July, before a vaccine is available at the earliest. So what we have are preventions. And I'm going to stop here and hand the baton to, I believe, Dr. Collins or whoever's up next with If You Travel. And if there are questions later, we'll be around. Let's be proactive.
Before Dr. Collins comes, let me just interrupt for just a second. Thank you so very much, Dr. Fuller. I am going to run through my slides. When it becomes my turn, I'm going to drop down to about 5 slides so that we I was watching the time, but
Yeah,
there was so much information and so well presented that I did not want to interrupt you. I was also
thank you.
watching the chat with folks responding in a similar way. And so I'm cutting mine down to 4 slides, so we will be close to on time.
Thank
I'd
you. I
also
appreciate
like
that.
no problem. I'd also like to let you all know that we have an international presence, a connectional presence this evening. We have a representative from the 19th Episcopal District, our health director in the 19th Episcopal District, a physician, as well as the WMS president from Zimbabwe. So please govern yourselves accordingly. I couldn't interrupt you to tell you, and I knew you weren't looking at the chat, to make sure that we are keeping our connectional church in our mind when we are making our comments. All of the comments have been relevant worldwide. So we're okay thus far, but if you have anything that's specific, please address them globally. Dr. Ouida Collins, we are in your hands now. Dr. Collins, unmute yourself.
Hello?
There you go.
All right. Sorry about that. Thank you for having me.
Are you still in the hospital?
I have just left.
All right.
So kind of work with me. I'm going to talk about COVID travel and suggestions. I've been traveling throughout the pandemic with work. But also, if you have questions, just put them in the comments section. The other thing I want to direct you to is the CDC has some excellent guidelines about travel during this time. Like Dr. Fuller said, the best thing is to stay at your house if you can. But if you have to travel, then you have to be strategic about it. Especially if you're flying on the airline, you want to try to get the earliest flight possible. Everybody doesn't like getting up at dark 30 and getting on a 5 a.m. flight, but that is the flight for you. Because people generally are not going to get up that early and be on those flights. You want to go on and pay the extra money to board early or to be in the A-list group, because you don't want to have to stand in the line with people as much as possible. TSA pre-check, and if you can get clear, which is an additional fee that's being offered at most airports, if you have clear, then you will be escorted to the front of the line and you will not have to wait in line. So if you have pre-check and clear, then you get escorted to the front of the pre-check line, so you're not standing in line there, and you can move through the TSA section a lot quicker. If you just have clear and you don't have pre-check, you still will be escorted to the front of the line. And so that's really, I think, important during this time if you can. Certainly, if you have some ailments or other reasons where you can pre-board, or someone in your party can pre-board, then that is also a plus. When picking your seat, what I recommend is that you go to the back of the plane, but not the very last seat. If you can be in the first two to board, in the first group, and you're allowed to pick your seat, then go to the back of the plane, roughly about 3 seats from the back. And the reason for that is because the lavatories are in the back of the plane. And if you're on the back seat, then people will congregate around you during that time waiting to use the restroom. So you want to try to decrease your exposure that way. The reason why you're going to the back of the plane, if you pre-boarded, then you're avoiding all of those persons passing by you when they're trying to get on the plane. So pre-board, get on early, and then try to get a window seat. Up until December 1st, they're keeping the middle seats open. So if you get the window seat, less exposure by the persons, multiple people passing by. The other thing is that you want to travel with your cleansing pack, regardless that they say they're sanitizing the plane and all of that. You want to have a travel pack. And what I want to recommend is that you look, Clorox wipes and those things can be hard to find. Check sometimes in the airport gift shops, they've had them. But if you have to bring your own, put them in a Ziploc bag. That way you don't have any fluid. When you get on the plane, wipe your entire seat down, wipe down the tray, wipe down the air vents, wipe down the slide for the window, and your belt buckle. As has been mentioned, you're going to need to have on a mask. If you can't, if you have an N95, then that would be best. If you don't, then KN95s, which is kind of the European version, are a little bit more available. And you can find some of these, I know I've seen them in Texas at the grocery store. Flying through New Orleans, they have them at some of the gift shops where you can pick those up. So you want to have on a mask, and the best mask that you can actually have on. The things that you see people wear that are the little thin roll-ups, you mostly see men, those don't work as well. And so I would say avoid those, okay? So you've got your mask, you've had your wipes, you got your TSA pre-check if you can get it, you've signed up for clear, and you wiped everything down. What should you be wearing on the plane? Long sleeves, long pants, closed-in shoes, and generally a hoodie or something to cover your head because you may lean back on the rest. Once you get in the airport, try not to take your mask off for any reason, which means eat and drink before you get to the airport. Eat and drink before you get to the airport. And if at all possible, take a non-stop flight. Try to take a non-stop flight so that you're not going through another airport and bustling through a lot of people and all of those things. If you are driving, then, you still want to have some of the same game plan. Make sure that you wipe down your car. If there's, if your household is riding with you, okay. If not, try to have the windows cracked. Everyone still have on a mask while you're driving. I'm down to try to decrease exposure, and try to make one-stop shopping, meaning you stop for gas, you stop for the restroom, you do all of that at one place, and you try to keep moving, which means, we're going to go kind of old school, the fried chicken, pound cake, boiled eggs, some water, drinks, go on and put that in the cooler so you're not trying to stop to get out and get something to eat and making multiple stops. So you really want to do the one-stop shopping. Once you arrive at your destination, then you need to disrobe. Shoes outside, they don't go into the house if possible. You want to be able to take off and disrobe and put clothes directly into the washing machine, shower, get yourself, and then put on new clothes before you go and try to greet everyone. The thing is to keep on the mask throughout the visit as much as possible, especially if you're visiting with family. If you're going to have still get this get together, it's best to be outside and try to keep households separated in groups and where you all are distanced but still can see each other. One of the things that we often do is we take the mask down to eat, and then we keep the mask down to continue talking. You don't want to do that. You want to put the mask back on when you have finished eating, because we get, very comfortable these people we haven't seen, we love them, and you forget to do that. So keep your mask on. Just be cognizant about traveling and making those small arrangements. Also, make sure you have the small hand sanitizer with you, and where you can, easily use it, and all of that's readily available in your bag or in your purse, or on your person. If you have those that you can kind of clip onto you, then that will work well also. All right. Safe travels. If you can't travel, I know we've talked about some of the alternatives. One of the things that I have 2 cousins, we all happen to be in the same town. We don't live here, but we have an aunt and uncle that have Alzheimer's, and they're 90 and 97 and 85. And so the 97-year-old does not have Alzheimer's. The 85 does. And of course, there was ruckus and all of this. So we, have gone and taken one of them fishing, the one with Alzheimer's. Fishing, traditionally, you're more than 6 feet apart, especially if you're fishing in the Gulf. That's just in general. Mask on, nobody else is out there. And, we're spaced out. So we got to find some alternatives, because we want to be able to celebrate with each other in 2021 and be able to do all of those things. So definitely follow the guidelines, the recommendations by Dr. Fuller and the CDC, and more information with the International Health Commission. I can make these tips available via email. We can send those out to you.
We're going to put them all. If you send it to me, we'll put it on the website.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you. Any questions?
We are going to, let's do your questions now.
Okay.
Because I do realize that you have another presentation. You working harder than I am in 9 minutes. So,
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, 9 minutes. Are there any questions for Dr. Collins? We'll double back to Dr. Fuller at the end.
But definitely, if you can avoid traveling and just sticking with your household.
All right, thank you so very much. Thank you for multitasking this evening.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Burnett, I have a quick question. When you said avoid traveling, could you comment on just between the neighbors next door? We're thinking traveling by plane or train from a distance. What about just next door in the neighborhood?
Yeah, that, is still traveling. That's still not your household. If you are living with your neighbors. I think that's one of the things that has gone on that I watch in my neighborhood, where the numbers are going up, and they think I'm crazy because I wear a mask to go check the mail. You'll see people, dropping their kids off, or they're waiting on the bus, but they're all sitting there with coffee, kind of, not quite 6 feet apart, no mask on, and all of that. So the thing about your household is really being strict, meaning those people that live in your house. And that makes it difficult. Now, perhaps, your neighborhood may be such where, I can sit in my driveway, you can sit in your driveway, and, we can speak and talk. But even then, I suggest that if you're not eating or drinking, that you still have your mask on. I can just tell you from personal experience, and treating this and being there, this is not something that you want to gamble with. And the idea that it's just old people or Black people or poor people is a misnomer. It can be young people. Some of the first patients that I had, were pregnant women. And I thought when they called me that it was something going on with the pregnancy. And they were like, no, it's COVID. You know, they was like, the patient crashed. They had to do a C-section. She's in the ICU. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm not OB. I mean, you know. So, but it was a pregnant person. And they also got, as Dr. Fuller talked about, the purple toes. And one of them ended up losing 3 toes. And this was very early on. So the skin changes, the blood clots and those things that go along with this is really big. You know, almost everyone ends up on dialysis, not for the rest of their lives, hopefully, but a lot of patients end up having to have some type of dialysis and to be on anticoagulant therapy because of blood clots. So stay at your house.
Amen.
Absolutely, amen. Dr. Collins, please remain safe in the hospital and all that you do with patients. We appreciate and love you much.
Love you back. Talk to you all soon. Thank you.
All right. I believe that it is now my turn. And like I said, I intend to cut this down as far as humanly possible. There we go. Move that out of the way. Slideshow from the beginning. Here we go. All right. There are a couple of things I want to drive home. We already know what has happened with the Canadian Thanksgiving that was held in October. They had increased clusters after family gatherings. All I'm doing is trying to reinforce what my colleagues have just said. The director, Alberta's chief medical officer of health, said the leading source of exposures for active cases were in close contacts, and many of the cases that they're seeing now are the result of spread over Thanksgiving when families gathered together. Bottom line, don't do it. This is a map of wherever it is you're coming from, all across the globe, or where you're going to, all across the globe. There are cases, some more or some less, but it's the entire globe. So it doesn't matter where you're going from or going to, coming from or going to. So here are some suggestions. Think out of the box. Remember physical distancing. Remember to properly wear a mask. Remember, if you are high risk yourself, remember those who are high risk that you are going to be visiting. So don't do it because of all of them. And remember to show the love of Christ by protecting yourself and others. It is a biblical mandate that we love one another. And how do we do that best? Stay home. We can host virtual Thanksgiving meals with our family and friends that we don't live with. Put your, however it is that you're on right now, turn that camera on, have it face you, have them do the same thing on their end. You can have multiple families doing the same thing. Go on Zoom. The Zoom link is free. Freeconferencecall.com now has the ability to do a webinar also. You can do virtual Thanksgiving for free as long as you have a camera and internet access. Share a meal or portions of the same. We always want Aunt Susie's macaroni and cheese. Aunt Susie can make her macaroni and cheese, slice it into sections, and put it outside, and everybody come by in a contactless way and pick up their macaroni and cheese. When you are picking up Aunt Susie's macaroni and cheese, leave your sweet potato souffle on her porch. Contactless, picking up, so that everybody has what they're supposed to have, because there's some folk that don't need to make macaroni and cheese, and we all know that. So it's going to require coordination. Please make sure You're using contactless pickup. Now, if Aunt Susie lives in a section of town that requires train or plane or bus travel, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to get her on the telephone ahead of time and figure out how to make the macaroni and cheese. It's just that simple. Enjoy the company of those who you live with. We are hustling and bustling all of the time.
I'll take it. You want me to take it?
No.
So play some games.
No, I don't. I've already
Watch
seen about
a
it.
movie. Watch some TV, read or tell stories, share those things that you're grateful for. It's a good time to teach others the family history, to include medical history. One of the things that we are famous for is not keeping people abreast of medical history that runs in the family. One of the things that's most important about that is there are some things that we can prevent or address early if we just knew our family history. You have a family history of colon cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, diabetes, hypertension. There are things that can be done if we know about them early enough. So share that information at the Thanksgiving table. If you are planning on shopping, do it online. I'm going to not read this because I want to make up a little bit of time. It will be in the PowerPoint. For mission efforts for our congregations, made food boxes instead of making dinner. Give those to who you normally would, who would normally come to the dinner. And those in the congregation, remember, we have a lot of folk who still are out of work or underemployed. Donate blankets and coats and put them in sealed large bags with hats and gloves and socks and snack foods, etc. Give gift cards to the grocery store. They can go buy their own, bring back to their own home. Provide a home craft kit, especially for children. Team up with your local art center who can do virtual demonstrations, show you how to put the craft together. We've got a Christmas card challenge going on in a couple of congregations on this side of the Northeast, between the 1st and the 2nd district. Team up with a local nursing home. Start writing cards now. Set a goal. Your YPD, WMS can be involved. Your lay can be involved. Everybody can be involved in making sure that we have provided some encouragement for those who are isolated, physically isolated, not socially isolated. I keep trying to emphasize, this is about physical distancing, not social distancing, so that they feel loved and appreciated, especially because most of their family will not, well, all of their family will not be allowed in. If they have not shut down the nursing homes yet, give it a couple of days. If you insist on gathering, the CDC has put these recommendations together. Number one, it's gonna get cold because they want you outside. In the Northeast, in the north portion of the Northern Hemisphere, it's going to get cold. You don't want to do this. You have to clean and disinfect everything that was in the reopen document. That applies to your home as well now. Limit the number of people involved in food preparation and in food preparation areas. Have guests bring their own food and drink. That'll be fun. What's the point of gathering if you have to bring your own food? Most people want to gather so that they don't have to prepare a meal. If you're sharing food, make sure there are single-use options and use plastic utensils. Wear a mask, safely store the mask while eating and drinking, and then put it back on immediately. Avoid going in and out of areas, and make sure we're using single-use options like salad dressing and condiment packets, food containers, plates, utensils, single use. Throw it away when done. Do not try to wash the dishes. Travel increases your chance of getting and spreading COVID. Staying home is the best way to protect yourself and others. That is a quote from Dr. Fauci. Please adhere. Staying home is the best way to protect yourself and others. There are resources that I have included. Please don't use them. Stay safe and healthy. I think I caught us back up. That means that we are now ready for Dr. Lisa Williamson. What to do about stress and feelings of isolation. Dr. Williamson, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, recognizing Bishop Seawright, and to my colleagues that have gone before. Thank you for that pertinent information. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about taking care of yourself. And in taking care of yourself, you're really also learning how to take care of each other. Part of this I entitled this Self-Care in a Virtual World, but it's also self-care in a socially distanced world. The first thing I want to talk about is what's called Zoom fatigue. I know a lot of us laugh about this, but this has become a recognized syndrome. When I say recognized, I'm talking about within the medical field. I know that I have had to go see my ophthalmologist because in working virtually, working remotely, running a church remotely, socializing remotely, our hours in front of a screen has significantly increased. Zoom fatigue is characterized by tension headaches, migraine headaches. A lot of the symptoms have to do with eyes. When I went to see my ophthalmologist, never in my life I was experiencing a lot of dry eyes, a lot of irritated eyes. In the summer, I thought it was allergy related, but when I went for my eye checkup, he told me that part of my eye irritation, eye pain is due to Zoom fatigue. All of my tear ducts were blocked. Um, you can have blurred or double vision, eye tearing, dryness, excessive blinking. Zoom fatigue is also associated with lack of focus. Because we're having so many meetings back to back, our mind tends to drift more quickly. For those who may be experienced, if you have not had an eye exam this year, please go get your eyes checked, because I promise you that with all of the virtual watching and worshiping and meetings, that your eye care is critical in this season. One of the things that I was prescribed is it is a eye compress that you microwave for 20 seconds and you keep it on your eyes for 10 minutes twice a day, and that begins to unclog those clogged teardrops, and it also begins to bring the natural moisture back to your eyes. There is something on here called the blue light blocking glasses that you can put on or put over your prescription glasses while you're in front of a Zoom meeting. Something that I have found really great in sitting so many hours is something called progressive muscle relaxation. This is a wonderful, when you're thinking about things to do with family or even with church members, YouTube has some fabulous Christian-oriented muscle relaxation videos. Some of them are 8 minutes, some of them are 15 minutes. You can gather and teach the people how to literally relax every single muscle group from the crown of their head to the soles of their feet. Because when you're sitting for hours upon hours, you have tension in your muscles that you don't even realize. And those tense muscles can lead to headaches and migraines and different sorts of pain. The other syndrome I want to touch base, and this is for those of us who are ministering to people, whether it's a congregation, whether it's part of your work, whether you know, you're taking care of a loved one. What we are seeing is increase of compassion fatigue. Basically, compassion fatigue is when you are so overwhelmed. We are in a season of grief and loss. We're in a season of isolation. We're in a season of uncertainty, unknown. We're in the midst of seeing death tolls every day on the news. And this is a recognized DSM-5 syndrome called compassion fatigue. I know as a pastor, in having to conduct funerals virtually and difficulty ministering to people and having people who've been in recovery for decades and then they're relapsing, compassion fatigue is real. And basically it is characterized by where you have a physical, emotional exhaustion. If you find yourself just collapsing at the end of the day, you're exhausted. It's a desensitization where you kind of are removing your emotional attachment. Like you're hearing story after story of people being sick, story after story, and it's all of a sudden you realize that you have emotionally detached from those stories. It is characterized increased irritability, difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. Feelings of inequity, meaning that you're providing care for a loved one or someone, and all of a sudden you're getting feelings like you're not up to the task anymore, or you're becoming overwhelmed. It can be characterized by headaches, weight loss, and you just start to lose satisfaction with your job, your ministry, your calling, your assignments. It's like it does not bring you the joy or passion you once had. The recommendations to deal with compassion fatigue and with all of these is first acknowledge it, be honest with yourself, recognize what is going on. Your body is wonderful at giving you signals and warnings. I know we are people of faith, but therapy is a wonderful thing. And the great thing is now you can have therapy right through your phone or your computer screen. Don't think that there is anything going against your faith to find someone to talk to. Meditation, once again, YouTube, wonderful Christian meditation techniques, and it's really all about breathing, how to do what we call toxic breathing, getting those things out of our body that we don't even realize we're holding in. Journaling, wonderful way of therapy to get those thoughts out of your head. Literally, you write it out and then you can go back and read it and wrestle with it. And then, of course, exercise. Yeah, gyms are not the place to be right now, but you could take a walk. They have things machines you can buy where you could be sitting all day, but your feet can be running. It's like a stable exerciser, and you could be sitting and in a meeting or watching something and you are exercising, you are getting your steps in, all right? And what I like to call restorative sleep. That's that nice, good 8 to 10 hour sleep. And most of us are not getting restorative sleep, but trying to really increase your sleep. Somebody the other day asked me about naps. If in the middle of the day your body is tired, take a nap. A nap is like 30 to 45 minutes. If you're going 2-3 hours, that's not a nap, you sleeping. And if you find that you're to the point where in the middle of the day you're sleeping for 2-3 hours, think about the fact that you are entering exhaustion exhaustion, contact your medical provider, see what's going on with your body. The other thing, and this is something that occurs every year, but in this season where we've been indoors, it's called seasonal affective disorder. And this is a type of depression or sadness that's related to the change in seasons. We are now in the phase where we have longer night and lesser day, less sunshine. It usually occurs within the early fall throughout the winter months. It's characterized by feeling depressed or sadness most of the day, where you begin to lose interest in activities, where you feel like you're low energy, you're slug, you become agitated, your moods are swinging left and right quickly, you're having difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. As you can see, a lot of compassion fatigue and seasonal affective disorder has a lot of similar symptoms, but the main thing about this is that feeling of sadness. And sometimes it can be to the point where you have feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, guilt. We have seen in this season that mental health providers, there's a lot more increase of domestic violence. There's increase of people with suicidal thoughts, not necessarily going to full blown, but people are becoming sad and depressed because, number one, you can't gather the way you want to. You're being told to stay indoors. It brings up feelings of isolation. If you're someone that lives alone, this is a very difficult season for you. And then on top of that, we add the long nights and the fewer sunshine. For seasonal affective disorder, they believe that it is caused by a natural biological clock, your own internal clock. It's a decrease in serotonin levels, and it's also an imbalance in your melatonin levels. And when Reverend Mitchem comes, she's going to tell you about these foods that can boost these things that you can eat naturally. The main thing for seasonal affective disorder is light therapy, phototherapy. You know, bring some nice, common, radiant light. Way down the line, if you think it's really impacting you to the point that you can't perform your activities of daily living, you can reach out to your medical provider, and sometimes they'll give you a short course of an antidepressant. Talk therapy, talk therapy, talk therapy. Amen. And also music therapy, art therapy. Wonderful for churches together. You can do paint classes. You can even go online. You could buy a little canvas and paint, talk it out, have some music. There are all kinds of things that you can do in this season if you're feeling isolated. Try what I like to do, tell people 5 minutes of self-care every day. Self-care does not have to be expensive. Self-care does have to be intentional. Deep breathing. That's breathing where you fill your abdomen up. When you inhale like a balloon, you hold it. You could say holy, 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 and then exhale it. And, you could breathe in. You want to exhale those feelings of anxiety, stretching your body. That goes back to the progressive muscle relaxation. Music, meditate on landscape. I love looking at landscapes, and you could set it up, and most people do, on your computer screen, where those landscapes can change. And 5 minutes, I can sit and just look at changing landscape. You have the Calm app. That you could download, and they'll play rain for you for 5 minutes. Read a chapter of a book. Read a book that's fun. It doesn't have to be theological, scientific. Get a fun book, a mindless book, and read it. Journal your thoughts. Go for a walk around your block, walk around your backyard, just, get some outdoor, wear your mask, of course, pick up a hobby. There's so many free online arts and craft courses now. Try a new recipe, download a recipe, something you've wanted to make. Just download the recipe, get the products together. You can share that with your family members on Zoom. But finally, I just want to leave you with this. Then God bless the seventh day, made it holy, And because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. This is a season where we have to be intentional about resting. We have to be intentional about decluttering our mind. We have to be intentional about sitting still and setting aside all the cares of the world and just come in and center so we can get those signals from our body. Be intentional. Check on your seniors. The other thing I want to recommend for churches, pick either one day of the month or one day of the week and make it a mental health day. You can get people who will come and talk to your congregation, to have them just what I say vent, and have them talk and ask questions that they wouldn't otherwise want to share with others. So in the season of being socially distanced, understand that God has also made this time for you to self-reflect and to listen to what your body, 5 minutes of self-care every day. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much. Reverend Natalie, why don't you round us out? Our dietitian and nutritionist is going to tell us what we don't want to know. Go ahead.
Amen. And how about that? I do always feel like that it comes to the point where I have to share what we don't want to do, what we don't want to do, but it's very important that we put certain things in place because, again, I have the scripture there, John 5:6, the man who was at the pool and he had to do something. Jesus asked him, do you want to be well? And several questions have been put before us: to wear our mask, to physically distance ourselves, to wash our hands, to get rest, to find alternatives for how we celebrate our holidays. So we want you to continue to work on this new normal and remember that we all play a role in making these changes. So rounding these out, we're going to talk about boosting your immune system with food. One of the things we have to remember that's very important is the fact that our immune system is based in our digestive tract. And so what we want to make sure that we do is we need to eat plenty of nutrient-dense foods in order to support a healthy flora or biome in your digestive tract, and that will help to promote a healthy immune system. So for those of you who can see my screen, you've got a little picture of a digestive tract and some disease cells trying to invade them. But if you would be, again, as Dr. Lisa said, intentional about eating those foods, and of course, if you think about it, the cheese pizza with the pepperoni, the fried chicken, Dr. Ouida said the fried chicken, I want you to do baked chicken, okay? Whatever meal you make it baked chicken. That cheeseburger, those are not going to be nutrient-dense foods. You want to focus on foods that are colorful. Those foods would be nutrient-dense for you. Remember this too, in boosting your immune system with food, that there is a brain, gut, or a digestive tract connection to food. And so when we nourish the brain, it boosts your immune system. Also, we need to realize that when we make healthy food choices, because as you know, we have found that unfortunately, due to pre-existing diseases, heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, all those things place, especially people of color, for risk for COVID-19. So when we make healthy food choices, you can boost your immune system, but at the same time fight those pre-existing diseases, again, such as a heart attack, a stroke, hypertension, reduce your risk for those. And then also making healthy food choices, eating plenty of colorful foods also helps you to fight Alzheimer's, dementia, multiple sclerosis, diabetes type 2, cancers, and obesity. So we need to be, again, focusing on those pre-existing diseases and know that as you make those healthy food choices, you can also help to reduce your risk for COVID-19. Here's the thing too, remember this, that foods that help to boost your immune system are colorful foods. And colorful foods are foods that we think of. They're plant-based foods: apples, tomatoes, oranges, ackee, grapes and berries, got a little stuff there. And what we need to realize about is that plant nutrients are phytonutrients. They contain fiber, healthy fat naturally, water, antioxidants, flavonoids, anthocyanins, carotens, lipnoids, polyphenols, resveratrol, phytoestrogens, omega-3 fatty acids, and thousands of other phytonutrients found in plant-based foods, nutrient-dense foods. So you want to eat more plant-based foods. And why? Because it helps to boost your immune system. Research has indicated that plant-based foods, foods found from the garden, will help to boost your immune system, repair your DNA, help with healthy cell communication, heal and repair your endothelial lining. And remember, Dr. Fuller, she talked about the importance of having a healthy endothelial lining of your body. So you want to make sure you promote that with eating more plant-based foods. Also, plant-based foods, which are high in those phytonutrients because they're plant-based, they're antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. You heard that COVID-19 causes inflammation. So you want to reduce that inflammation by eating more fruits and vegetables and whole grains. It promotes cellular nutrition and helps you to fight and prevent a variety of diseases. And the thing about it is when you look at a healthy meal, you'll realize that the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, the Plantation Project, Lifestyle Medicine, Harvard Healthy Plate, which we're going to look at, all recommend that you eat meals that are mostly plant-based. And of course, you've heard about vitamin C being helpful just with the common cold or flu. So boost up and eat more of your citrus fruits, avocados, ackee, green leafy vegetables, berries, bell peppers, fresh cranberries, mangoes. And when you think about berries, as earlier when Dr. Williamson was mentioned, berries can help to boost up those feel-good hormones naturally. So your serotonin and all those things that make you feel good, eating more blueberries, especially the blueberries and the strawberries, enjoy more of those in this time of the season. You've heard about vitamin D being very helpful. It does help to boost your immune system. So on those days when the sun is shining, and guess what? Even when you can't see the sun is shining, get out there. I saw Dr. Fuller, she put in there, bundle up and go outside, even when it's a little chilly, but go out there and make sure you're getting sunshine. Mushrooms have vitamin D. There are fortified beverages and cereals that have vitamin D. You also hear about zinc. Sources of zinc that are helpful that you can find sources of zinc in beans and nuts and meat and fortified foods. But here's what I want you to understand. Don't just focus on any one, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. I want you to focus, if you do take a supplement, do a multi-supplement, multivitamin and mineral if you decide to do that. Because what's important is that nutrients work together synergistically. So you want to eat a variety of colorful foods. And I feel like this, the best place to get all of your vitamins and minerals first is from healthy food. So you want to eat food. I mentioned to you before a healthy plate. This is the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate. And this is what it looks like when you are developing a healthy plate. And during these holidays, this is where you want to envision your plate. So that plate that you're having for Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is that you may be celebrating, make sure that the largest part of your plate is vegetables. Then you'll see fruits, you'll see whole grains, and then healthy protein. And notice healthy protein is a variety. It could be fish, could be poultry, but it also could be nuts. It could be tofu or tempeh or beans. But this is what a healthy plate looks like. Now, for many of us, I know in the holiday time, normally, what's the major part of your plate? It's the meat. But we're trying to make sure that you make your healthy plate be more of a phytonutrient, plant-based plate, because that's what's going to help to boost your immune system. And of course, you'll see the glass of water there. Make sure that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes about staying hydrated. And it also says avoid the bacon and processed foods. And some of you may not know, but bacon and hot dogs and other processed foods, some of them have been labeled case 1 carcinogenic. So you want to be careful of eating those things. Boosting your immune system, some of the longest living populations, including some of those people who are in this population are people of color. They eat what's known as a Mediterranean diet or a DASH diet, the diet to approach to stop hypertension. And you'll see that I have a picture there that diet, a Mediterranean diet, is full of colorful foods, plant-based foods, foods that are going to be high in those phytonutrients. And those phytonutrients, you're not going to find them in meat. However, in the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, they do recommend that you do include some lean meat in there. You don't want to eat a lot of fatty meats. And they found that people who eat a Mediterranean diet, a DASH type diet, again, are amongst those who are the longest living and with healthy populations. They have lower risk of diabetes type 2, of heart disease, of strokes, of cancer, and then also those who choose to eat whole plant-based meals. Some of you may always relate that to being a vegetarian meal, but meals that are vegetarian are not always whole plant-based meals. Whole plant-based meals means that you're focusing more on the nutrients, and so French fries wouldn't be included in there. You're gonna have the baked potato as opposed to that. Potato chips are not included in there. In other words, you can eat an unhealthy plant-based food, but you wanna eat whole plant-based foods because again, you're boosting your immune system and you can get into the ranks of those who are finding themselves in the longest living healthy population where they're living to 100 years old, 99 years old. They don't have arthritis. They're able to run and walk and think clearly. So boost up those fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Another thing is flavor your food with healthy spices and herbs, and just a dash or a small amount will do it. I listed a few herbs and spices to talk about, but as you know, there are thousands of herbs and spices. So turmeric, which has curcumin in it, you heard a lot of talk about that. It's found to be anti-inflammatory. It also supports fighting cancerous cells by causing them to cause self-destruction. Cinnamon helps to control your blood sugar spikes, and cinnamon placed in beverages offers a natural sweetness to beverages and to food that you might have noticed before. Garlic, helping to lower your cholesterol and your blood pressure. Some of you may already take a garlic tablet. I encourage you to cook with fresh garlic. Sage, now we're getting close to the holidays. Sometimes you only think about sage when you're putting it in your dressing or your stuffing or putting it over on your meat. But it also helps, they found in research, with healthy brain function and memory. Cardamom has magnesium and zinc, and it's anti-inflammatory. Ginger, again, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, found in research to help fight cancer. Star anise, maybe something we don't use a lot in America, but many cultures use star anise, antifungal, antioxidant, antibacterial. And many of these things you might not have known about spices, but just think about it. Just a dash of a spice on your food, in your beverages can make a difference to boost your immune system and to help you fight disease. And then thyme. Thyme has vitamin C in there. You never really hear people talking about thyme having vitamin C, but it does. Also acts as an antimicrobial, anti-cancer, and may help to lower your blood pressure. How many of you knew that about those spices? So I encourage you, just a dash of those spices. And how about this? Something for you to smile about. Pumpkin pie spice is not only for your pumpkin pie, everybody. I'm sure some of you only get it this time of the year and then you don't use it again, but I'm gonna encourage you to just a dash, put a dash and make a pumpkin pie smoothie. You can sprinkle it on your non-dairy yogurt. You can make pumpkin whole grain muffins or pancakes and waffles. Sprinkle it in your tea or your coffee. Sprinkle it on baked chicken. It's a wonderful, some of you don't think of it that way, but pumpkin pie spice can be for sweet and savory foods. Sprinkle it on your sweet potatoes, butternut squash, your root vegetables. And what's great about root vegetables, I encourage you, make that a side dish this holiday season. Cut up your root vegetables, roast them, sprinkle a little bit of pumpkin pie spice on there, and it brings out the natural sweetness. Use it in your curry dishes, your bean dishes, sprinkle it on brown rice, and even put it on your breadfruit. When you're thinking about boosting your immune system, hydration is very important. But here's the thing you want to do. You want to avoid beverages that are very sweet or artificially sweetened, because that can take away from your hydration. It actually can cause some cases you being dehydrated. So the goal here is you want to do half your body weight in ounces, not cups, in ounces a day of drinking. I recommend water, but a fluid, unless you're on fluid restrictions. So if your doctor has you on fluid restrictions, you don't want to do this, follow that. But let's just say you weigh 100 pounds. So then your goal is 50 ounces, not cups, 50 ounces of water per day. And how can you do that? You can sip on infused water throughout the day. You see those wonderful glasses of water I have with oranges and watermelon and blueberry and lime in them. You can enjoy hot teas and soup. Try some real cocoa instead of the little prepackaged cocoa. Get yourself some real cocoa this season and make that, okay? If you like bubbles, try seltzer water with some fresh fruit. If you need a little bit of a sweet taste, try some monk fruit. They come in packets. They've seen in research that they do not cause your blood sugar to rise. Try a little bit of honey, a little bit of real maple syrup. I'm not talking about pancake syrup, real maple syrup, just a little bit, or date paste. And date paste is taking dates, And some of our brothers and sisters around the world use dates quite often. Take the date, mix it with a little bit of water, put it in a blender, make it into a paste, and you can use it just like you might use sugar. But remember this, sugar is sugar. So I'm not encouraging you to overuse it, just a small amount of any one of those. And alcohol does not count when you're hydrating your body, everybody. Alcohol does not count. Everybody got that? So you need to limit it or avoid alcohol. Don't anybody tell me, well, I heard wine. I say it again. Alcohol does not count for hydration of your body. So rounding this up, this is my second to the last slide. Some healthy holiday meal suggestions for you. Start your day with a cranberry smoothie. So you can make your smoothie, put in your non-dairy milk. You can put in some cranberries, and what you can do before you put the fresh cranberries in, I'm suggesting that you make your own cranberry sauce so you can control the sugar. And the recipe is right on the bag of cranberries. I know we always go for that can, but get yourself some real cranberries. Cranberries also have vitamin C in them, and instead of using sugar, use maple syrup, make it, and then throw your own homemade cranberry sauce in a cranberry smoothie. Also create a healthy plate by making sure that most of the foods on your plate are plant-based, so a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits and whole grains. Avoid using animal fat and meat to flavor your vegetables and your dressings and your side dishes. So think about healthy spices to flavor your side dishes and your dressing. Use those spices, use herbs, use vegetable broth. I've already said this, avoid soda and diet soda and sweet beverages. Instead, serve some infused water and hot tea. And then with meat, for the meat that you might have, how about this? Make sure they're lean cuts, small portions, and make meat the new side dish, everybody. Meat needs to be the side dish. That's why I have that picture of the Harvard healthy eating plate. Meat needs to be your side dish. And instead of having turkey and ham and roast beef and roast pork and everything else, how about make one meat if you eat meat? Some of you I've lost you, I know I have. One meat, okay? Instead of having all those choices, okay? And then eat a smaller portion, or maybe you'll learn how to skip it, but make this your new healthy normal so that you can help you to fight disease and boost your immune system. So basically I'm saying to you, your new normal to fight and prevent and stop disease is to boost up eating more plant-based foods, your fruits and your vegetables, your whole grains, so that you can fight and prevent and stop disease. Thank you so much, and we're going to go to some questions.
Thank you so very much. Reverend Natalie, I'm going to start with you because it's freshest on folks' mind. There was a question about pomegranates. Let me find it. What about pomegranate juice?
You certainly can do pomegranate juice. The thing that I want you to be careful of with any fruit juice, look at the sugar content. You want to be careful about that. You know, anything that has above 20 grams of sugar, you want to avoid that. You want it to be 20 grams or less. So be careful about that. So certainly you can have that pomegranate juice, any other fruit juice, but the fruit itself is always best because the fruit itself contains fiber and other phytonutrients that will be taken out in the processing. So go for the fruit first and then the juice second, and be careful of the sugar amount.
So we can make our own smoothies with our fresh fruit if we want to drink it rather than eat it, correct?
Yes, you can also do that, yes.
All right. Can you tell us about Culinary RX while I look for the next set of questions?
Sure. So we invite you, if you go to our website, www.amechealth.org, we offer a cooking program called AMEC Culinary RX, which teaches you how to cook more with plant-based foods. Because a lot of times we just think, you know, all you can do is make a salad with tomatoes, but it teaches you how to make your own bean burgers, a variety of way to do your brown rice, a variety of way to use whole grains, a variety of way to make different types of smoothies, homemade soups. Even we'll teach you how to make your own homemade pasta. So, and it's only $49.99, one-time fee of paying that, but you get a lifetime access to it. And what's also good about it is what I went over briefly, it really goes into depth how different phytonutrients help to fight and prevent disease. So it really talks about that in a simple and understandable way, but it allows you to get greater knowledge while you're learning how to cook, and it has online demonstrations of meals that you can cook, has scriptures to support it along this journey, but it pulls it all together in a way that anybody can use in your home, in your church, with your congregation. Wonderful way to start the new year, a wonderful way while we're all in the home to log on to AMEC health.org and click on Culinary RX and sign up.
Thank you. Dr. Fuller, this one's for you. Will you please address the issue with wearing vented masks that allow droplets that may contain the virus to escape?
Yes, vented masks are not recommended for that very reason, that they allow droplets or air to pass through. You can breathe easier in them, and thus they may feel better, but they're not helping to keep the virus, which is in the air, in the respiratory drops, in the water drops, out. So don't use them for COVID.
There are many other suggestions that are in the chat. All of us have been loading things into the chat, as well as you as participants. I don't see any questions as I continue to
There's a
do so. If you,
couple of questions that I
okay,
see
good.
on my
You see
end.
it? Okay, go.
Someone wants to know, Reverend Natalie, do you recommend frozen fruit when making a smoothie, or fresh fruit?
Either one, because it depends on the season. So frozen fruit certainly can be used in place of fresh. If it's the season where it's for berries, for strawberries, try to use fresh first. But certainly, if it's not the season for it, the way that frozen fruits and vegetables are preserved, at least you still have a higher level of nutrients in them, so they are appropriate for making your smoothies.
And then the other question was about using coconut water in the smoothie. Is that okay?
Yeah, coconut water is also something that you can use to make your smoothie.
And what reduces cravings for potato chips and chocolate?
There is no special magical thing to do that. That's a matter of weaning yourself from them over time. I can say that. So that, here's something that we've done in our house several years ago. One of the things that I do not do any longer is I don't buy bags of pre-made cookies and bags of pre-made, pre-packaged cakes and things like that. And you can add potato chips. So first of all, don't have it around so easily for you to grab. If it's not there in the house, then that will help to reduce it, okay? So that every time a commercial comes, and then the less you eat of it, you can help to wean yourself off of it. The last thing I would say is that just find out, and this is another thing that Culinary RX talks about, find out what you really like about the potato chip. You might say, well, you like the potato chip, but also what we found is sometimes it's the crunch that you like. And so you may be able to replace that crunch that you're craving with something else, maybe nuts, maybe carrot sticks, but try all those things. First of all, try not to make it so readily available so you can grab it. And then try to see if it's really the crunch, the flavor, the spice, and you might find some good alternatives for those potato chips.
I see a question here. It's probably for me about what's the possibility of our children wearing glasses in the future, as so many are on virtual learning. One thing I want to teach you something for children called the 20-20 rule. 20 minutes in front of the screen, they take a 20-second break, and they blink their eyes 5 times, and then whatever screen they are in front of, they should be 20 feet away. So I know sometimes with virtual classes that their classes run longer than 20 minutes, but I'm talking about their digital screen time, 20 minutes, take a 20-second break, blink, have them blink their eyes so they can stimulate those tear ducts to bring water to moisturize their eyes, and they should always be 20 feet away from a screen. I see too many children with their iPads and iPhones close to their eyes, and try to decrease the brightness and also increase the text size. And this is something that I've been saying and people have not been listening, but children 2 years and under should not be watching TV. They should not be on digital screens. I'm gonna just leave that right there. But yes, children's eyesights are being impacted. So make sure that you're also getting your children's eyesight checked. But remember, 20 feet away from their screens.
Dr. Williamson, do you mean 20 feet or do you mean 20 inches?
No, 20 feet.
Really? Okay.
It's not that much, 20 feet from the screen.
20 feet.
20 feet. The rule is 20, 20, 20. They should be on the screen 20 minutes, take a 20-second break, and look at the object from 20 feet away. That's where your 20/20 vision comes from. They're not 20 inches. Because 22 inches would be me right here, which is what most children are doing. So that's the 20, 20, 20 rule.
Does that apply to adults as well?
Absolutely. And they have wonderful things on the phone that they can, you can look at your screen time, right? And really we're taught, and then for children also, they should shut down from all devices. The standard pediatric society says an hour. I say anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours before they go to bed, because that will impact their sleep. If you just have them turning off their phone or iPad and then telling them go to bed, that they're not going to go to bed that quickly. So you need to shut it down at the minimum an hour to 2 hours before bedtime.
There is another question in the chat for you, Dr. Williamson. Will our vision correct itself? I'm not an ophthalmologist.
No. You know, we can stop the progression, but for your vision to correct itself, many of you know, if you wear glasses, more than likely when you go to that eye doctor, either your vision is the same or it's gotten worse. I don't know how many people can tell me that you went to the eye doctor and they told you you no longer need glasses, because what's really happening is the shape of the eyeball is changing. Now you can correct it with surgery, that you talk to your provider, but once you're on that track with impaired vision, I mean, going back to Reverend Natalie, there are natural foods that have the vitamin A and vitamin E and other things that can help with eyesight. But once you start on that course, it's a difficult course to come back from.
There's someone who put in the chat that if you use the blue light filter on your phone and home computer, it's under the display model, setting where you can do that.
And you got those blue light glasses. You can find them in CVS, Walmart, and just throw them over, and that helps with the glare from the computer screen.
Back to you again. Most rooms aren't 20 feet long. Are we watching from another room?
What I really want you guys to do is get a tape measure. And because the majority of us are sitting too close, and I think when you're thinking about 20 feet, you are really exaggerating. So measure it and get a clear, because most of us do not sit 20 feet from any screen. Most of us are watching television and everything close. So I know it sounds incredible and y'all want me to say 20 inches, but it's not 20 inches. It is 20 feet. Take a tape measure and you're going to realize that the distance, yes, because really, think about it. When they're checking your vision, it's what you can see from 20 feet away. And think about where you're sitting in the ophthalmologist's office from the screen they're showing you. So it sounds like a big distance, but measure it out and you'll see.
And there's a question in there about, lately I've been finding myself eating a lot of chocolate candy, the Snickers, the Milky Way, the M&Ms, late at night, etc. Here's the thing, just the same thing with the potato chips. If you have to stop, I'm going to use some humor. the candy and the cookies did not walk into your house. I'm giving some humor. So you can control that. So what I'm saying is, refrain from buying them. As I suggested with you that I stopped a long time ago, you have easy access to them. If you would remove them from your house, that's gonna reduce your access to them. And then what you want to replace it with are some apples and some oranges and some berries. Have those in your house. So then when that craving comes around, now at least you're snacking on something that's healthier. And another thing that you'll find, even going back to the potato chips, when we get away from eating the junk food, your taste buds will change and you will not enjoy that level of sugar. Those candy bars will be too sweet. The potato chips will be too salty. But you have to take a time, as we do and as Christians, when we fast from certain things. So first of all, try fasting from those, allow your taste buds to adjust, then place in your home, again, some healthier alternatives, again, the berries, the strawberries, the carrot sticks, whatever it might be. And you will notice that when you go back to those things, when they're not so close to you, you may not even want them anymore. So give those things, give that a try. Reduce your access. One of the things that they've also found that many times that we are suffering from the access that we have to food. And of course, with COVID-19, we're turning to the comfort food is what I'm trying to get out. We're turning to comfort food. But we're going to have to develop some new comfort food so that we can also fight disease. And it is possible. Your taste buds can change over time.
Thank you. Dr. Fuller, there's one question in here for you. It's actually sent to me privately. If someone tests positive and is quarantined for 14 days, do they need to be retested?
Yes, I got that question privately also. And yes, it is better to be retested so you know you're not shedding virus. One of the best ways to know is, or to check is when your symptoms go away. Even so, we're finding there's some asymptomatic shedding of people even after all the symptoms are gone. So I would suggest getting tested at the end as well, and then going at least 3 days with no symptoms. I do have a last slide whenever we want to close out. Just remembering all of these things that we've talked about help because we are home for the holidays, because there's a pandemic of a respiratory virus that is very easily transmitted, and we want to avoid that. So we can use this time to learn about nourishment, to practice cooking with our family, to practice self-care of ourselves and our loved ones. And these habits, these things will not go away when COVID is gone. There'll be positive changes that will go with us for the rest of our lives.
So we're saying that even when we have a vaccine, because there's whenever we're able to get back in church again, does a vaccine automatically mean back to our old normal?
No.
Actually, I have a question on the last slide, which is
Okay.
What is the end game for the COVID pandemic? And I'll just take a moment to say, what we used to do will never happen again. Even with the vaccine, and there probably will be several vaccines, some that will work better for some people and some for others, that will reduce the amount of circulating virus. When we get to that point, we may not have to mask up as much. We may have to mask up only in certain gatherings, like gatherings of over 50 people indoors. So there will always be, at least in the immediate future, some changes due to the presence of COVID. We will not get rid of this virus. It will never completely go away, even with vaccination, but we will learn how to manage it. It will take a while for everybody to get vaccinated. We don't know if natural immunity lasts, so we can't count on that. So there is going to be a new normal. And the sooner we get used to that idea as the end game, the better.
Thank you.
I have one more question in here, Dr. Williamson. What do you suggest for children who have been given Chromebooks to participate in school? It's not possible for them to see it 20 feet away. Can you make recommendations?
What I would recommend is that you do a trial with your child to see the furthest distance that they can sit from the screen and still see the screen clearly. And that way you can judge that distance. But the thing about that, and what most of us don't realize, is that if your child is struggling to see a screen, let's say from like 5 to 6 to 7 feet, then they need to have their eyes tested. Most of us are too close to our screens on a daily basis, but you can push your child's chair back and see the furthest distance that they are still able to see that screen. I recommend you can buy, or you can make shift where the iPad or the Chromebook is on a stand, because most kids are holding it in their hand. You put it on a stand and you push them back the furthest distance that they are still visibly able to see what is on the screen. And if you see that they're too close, then it's time for an eye check.
What about the use of a keyboard to help them stay distance?
Yeah, you can do that as well.
Okay. We are at 7:54. We originally had this slotted for an hour and a half. I thank you very much for, we're still at 91 on the Zoom. We were at 107, so I take that as we have done a good thing by continuing on, but I know that most people will begin to get fatigued after, well, if they're not already. And our connectional folk who are in the motherland are in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And so, one, I thank them for making the sacrifice, because that's a sacrifice to stay up all night to be with us. And to be, we normally try to do these on Saturday at noon, but we decided this urgently, and this was the only time slot available. So I thank you all for making the sacrifice. We will make the presentations available on the website by midweek. And this is already on Facebook. It was live streaming. It's already on YouTube. It also was live streaming, so it will be able to be shared from there, and it will be posted. James, if you can post this to this recording, the Zoom recording, to the website by the middle of the week, that will be very helpful. Is there any one last pressing question that anyone would like to ask before we go to Dr. Fuller to close us out? And Dr. Fuller, when you close us out, also pray us out.
All right. Any last question?
Nope,
All right.
we're good.
Hearing none, this is the last question and answer slide that I had, of which many of these we discussed in our evening together with the presenters, so I'm not going to go through it. The last thing is, what can I do, one person, to make a difference necessary over this 2020 holiday? So that's what I want you to ask yourselves. I want you to pray about that. I want you to work together from a distance with other people to find ways. We heard some wonderful alternatives for family gatherings, some wonderful self-care things and things that we should know about, some wonderful nutrition that we should do, and also how to travel if we are going to travel, which hopefully we are not going to travel. So we just pray that you will consider these things as you enter into this holiday season, so that we can come through when the vaccine, and be available when the vaccine is available, and not lose lives or have loss of income and health because of exposure to this virus and influenza. So thank you again to the International Health Commission of the AME Church for seeing this need and stepping up to the plate. Dr. Burnett and all the presenters, Bishop Seawright, and all of you who thought it not robbery to come out and be with us tonight. Let us go to God in prayer.
I have one more announcement. December 3rd at 7 p.m. in collaboration with another agency, There will be a discussion on the COVID vaccine. Dr. Fuller, you and I need to talk about it because I need you to moderate that session so we make sure that the questions actually get answered. Our HBCU medical schools who are participating in the trials will be our panelists, Meharry,
All right.
Howard, Morehouse. And we
Amen.
will have our expert moderating to make sure that the information that's being disseminated is correct. So look
Amen.
for that announcement.
There's also something next Monday night, COVID conversations, family, friends, and workspaces. And I'll ask Dr. Burnett if that can be posted on the AME site
Absolutely.
that we're doing.
Absolutely.
The goal is to keep everyone, especially our people, safe. We suffer from lack of understanding. And if you get the understanding, if you know better, God enables us to do better. Amen.
Amen.
All right, let us go to God in prayer. Father, Abba, our God, our creator, the one who knows us, the one who created us in your own image. We're grateful for everything that our eyes have seen and our ears have heard and our spirit has received tonight. Thank you for putting this together, God, and instructing us on what to say and how to say it. Now, Lord, in the name of Jesus, seal this new understanding in the hearts of the participants here. Have them speak to others, Lord, such that as this pandemic, as this plague passes through the land, that you will allow us and implore us to follow the instructions you have given us so that it will pass over our households. Lord, help us to be obedient to what we've learned. Help us to use this time wisely to come closer to you and closer to our own family members and even closer to our church families from a distance. Oh God, we ask now in the Jesus name that you would go with each household represented here. Guard them and watch over them as we go through this time, remembering that the darkest hour is just before dawn. Now bless us and keep us in the mighty, awesome, saving, protecting, healing name of Jesus the Christ. We ask it, believing and receiving. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Good night. God bless.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you all very much.
Night.